October 1958, I flew my first 4-foot square machine, 32 horsepower, which was a research vehicle to determine how to make them lift, how to make them steer, control, and so on. And whereas it was not a comfortable machine, I did stand on it astride the duct and rode it around the shop floor, man-carrying, in October of 1958. Subsequently, I put that same power section into a rectangular machine called the A35B, and that I demonstrated for Popular Science in April of 1959. And we demonstrated it on Old Hard Road in Neponset. We demonstrated it on a lake in Neponset, and that certainly is the first air-cushioned vehicle to be on water. And then I subsequently increased the power of that machine to become the A72, which 72 horsepower, become somewhat more controllable, but still not adequate in my opinion. And then of course the publicity was so wide that we did get a lot of coverage, and we built a 200 horsepower 4-passenger machine, again a peripheral jet machine, and we flew the chassis first, and then we put a 4-passenger body on it. The Department of Commerce became interested in it, and since there were no other sources for cushioned vehicles, and they felt that this was an American thing that should be publicized, they authorized us to build the A200-2, which was the same as the chassis of the 200-1. They built a highly styled body that was shipped to Neponset, put on this chassis, and was taken around the world. It went first to Japan, and the International Trade Fair in Japan in 1961. And Prince Akihito was seen looking at it. Harold Stetson of Neponset took it on all of those tours, and it went from there to Zagreb, Yugoslavia, to Turin, Italy, to New Delhi, India, and so on. That machine was subsequently was donated to the Army as a human test machine to test people's reaction to air-cushioned vehicle, and I think they dismantled it, and it doesn't exist anymore. So then we worked on to try to overcome the poor controllability of them, and we finally did with our gimbal fan machines. And now we're talking about 16 full-scale machines, but only 13, 14, and 15 are adequate. And all of the rest of them fall in the category of those failed machines which were offered for sale in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. But with our gimbal fan, we can control the machine to move sideways, backwards, to move high speed forwards, to have power braking with steering, and it will sidestep, and it will do everything that is needed. When you get a ton of weight floating on a frictionless cushion, you don't think there's any breeze, but there is, and the breeze takes the machine, and you don't think there's any grade, but there is, and it goes downhill. And if you got downhill, downwind, why, you're in big trouble unless you've got the power and the thrust to move it where the pilot wants to go. And indeed, the gimbal fan will do that. Basic principle is that it has a ducted fan which sits neutral, producing lift only. And as the pilot wants to go forward, well, he will tilt it so that it's still producing lift, but it also produces thrust over the deck, which will give it a forward urge. If he wants to stop it, he reverses it. If he wants to turn it, he will turn the gimbal fan either direction. And he has a powerful thrust. And if you put a gimbal on the forward and the rearward end of the machine, you have absolutely positive control. You can pivot in place, you can go backwards, sideways,